All right, cyber traders, good morning and welcome on back here this Tuesday, April 19th, shortly after 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you're on social media, Facebook Live or YouTube, you could tell likely that this is not the voice of one Fausto Pugliese. My name is Josh Levitan, the senior instructor here at CTU. Great to see you, Ray, Andrea, all of us live inside Cyber Group. And hey, if you're joining us on social media, welcome on back. So, folks, I'll tell you what, not as much on the docket this morning in terms of stocks actively moving in pre-market. There's been a couple, and we'll go over those in just a bit. We'll do a more thorough scan once more in just a bit. A couple of housekeeping notes to begin, though. First and foremost, just coming up later on this afternoon at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, Fausto will be on then. I know he had a couple of things to take care of at home. Everything's all right, but he had a couple of things to take care of. He'll be back later on this morning, though, I believe. But he'll be on officially this afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, doing a webinar, an introductory to day trading webinar, I believe with Mark K. Latimer also. So that should actually be a pretty nice special event. I ended up doing, the high yield crypto course with Mark K. And, we ended up having a really nice couple of picks over the last few weeks if you've been following those alerts. But nonetheless, Fausto will be on at 4 p.m. Eastern Time with her later on this afternoon. If you wanted to register for that event, just go right down the link on the banner below. If you're on social media, if you're in the trading room, we'll post the link much later in the day for you folks there. But if you're not able to attend live, at least register. Go right down to that banner anyway. At least that way you could receive the recording once it's complete. All right, so that's the first piece of housekeeping. Second piece of housekeeping. Today is Tuesday for all of us exclusively in the trading room. What does that mean? For Leda, for Michael, of course, you folks know. Today's Tuesday. What does that mean, folks? Traders Talk, right? Today's Traders Talk Tuesday. So it's a weekly live Q&A that I personally host inside the Cyber Group room every Tuesday morning. If you wanted to join that, well, you have to be a part of our live trading room. So for Lewis, Bill, Leda, Grant, Michael, etc., all of us there, you folks know this already. But if you have any questions that you would want to go over with us as a group, get my insight on it, or a trade entirely that you may have taken, or a trade maybe that you didn't take and it ended up moving up and away without you, well, let's go over that. So if you wanted anything to cover with us in Traders Talk this morning, that'll be taking place live inside Cyber Group at 11:05 Eastern Time. Just send me a quick email. Go to just send it right to josh@ctutrading.com, and we'll cover it right at the 11 o'clock hour. All right, so without further ado, NAVB is on the screen right now. We'll scan the percent gainers and losers lists in just a bit. Listen, it's up 24%. It's more of a level one stock, so it really wouldn't harm us to put this stock on the main watch list. But I want to see if there's anything even, looking a bit, faster, more active than this even. So I'll likely put this on our watch list. Let me just go through a couple of the picks that we had from yesterday. These actually will likely cover inside Traders Talk later on this morning. So the Twitter trade from yesterday, we ended up seeing melt right back on up. It ended up actually having a bit of a drop off once the market opened. A bit of a slingshot ultimately where it pulled back towards 44.50-ish, 44.25 perhaps that bottom is. But, from that point ended up making the real big pop above 45, took off from there, and then just it kept going, right? So really it's to say, though, we're going to cover this trade later on this morning. So if you're a part of our live trading room, I'll give you the A to Z on this trade. I'll give you my entries and exits from the late morning it was. I didn't take this from the market open, but I ended up taking it later on around 10:45, 11 o'clock Eastern. And then later on in the afternoon, prior to class beginning, I actually showed a few of us that were there early. I ended up getting out on a position, and we went over that trade as a group. So, we'll do that once more, at least in Traders Talk. The Twitter trade for this morning remains a great stock to at least keep on the side list. Speaking of class, the phase one stock course, that was something that we had covered yesterday afternoon. So in terms of developing a daily side list, Twitter's basically break even so far from yesterday's close, right? Maybe point down 0.8%, but it's a good side list stock at a minimum. So if we have a really shallow watch list heading into the open, I would have no problem just adding a Twitter, if anything. You know what I mean? All right. The other one before I wanted to go, scan around was the CASA trade. CASA ended up making a pretty good move shortly after the market opened up. It ended up popping, of course, as you could see in pre-market there, shortly after 8 o'clock, but it ended up continuing to push up, leading into the open. So, generally speaking, and again, we'll cover this more in class this morning or traders talk, I should say. But the question you want to ask is for a stock that's trending up or down in any respective direction, what happens if history could repeat itself? So, it's to say when the market opens, for as much as this is going up, what happens if this continues to go up? What happens if it, breaks above a major resistance, more or less, right? So it took a little bit. It ended up, consolidating, but it ended up getting the job done. Ended up making a nice breakout shortly after the open, ran up from like 550 up towards just about 7, and then ended up providing that like last move up for us here heading into the close, which was pretty surprising. For as much volume as this stock traded yesterday, normally at 2:30, 2:45 Eastern time, if a stock like this is not literally near or at the highs, I'm expecting more of a drop off, more of, just consolidation or exhaustion. So, pretty surprisingly enough, this one ended up giving us that last leg up from like, 580-ish, 575 even, all the way up towards over 7, right? So for the open, it's actually on the losers list, down over 8%. So I feel like this one's more likely to continue to drop off for as much as it ended up trading, volume yesterday. And normally doesn't do that. So, and also for as much as it, popped yesterday in terms of the percent move that it made. So I feel like today's more of a drop off day, more or less. I mean, it's still good to keep on your side list, on your radar. So I'll do just that. But, for right now, let's just see what else we got across the gainers and losers list. We got Patrick inside Cyber Group really quickly. First, calling out PMCB number 4. We'll get to that in a bit. So I'm sure that's a good call out, perhaps popping even right now after we started this meeting. The STSS trade though to begin. So this one still very active in pre-market, still could easily provide us a great opportunity upon the market opening up. I just say that given the overall activity that it has on this intraday chart. This is an IPO though. It ended up opening up just yesterday, I think, right? So that took me by surprise for something so inexpensive. I normally, wouldn't see this like as an IPO just with no real history from the daily chart. I had to like zoom out, adjust my chart, make sure that I was seeing the right thing. Like maybe I didn't have enough coffee made this morning. But no, this ended up just opening up yesterday as like a really cheap IPO. I think the opening bell print there was off 265, topped off at 270, completely tanked. All right. Well, today it ended up, actually pushing above that high, not within the regular hours thus far, but I still feel like this could be a really good opportunity when the market opens up. If it could hold support pretty nicely, perhaps around that 270 level later on. It's got to get back up there first. So, with the direction it's going in, perhaps we might even see 2 or close to 2 before it perhaps makes that bounce for us later on, going into the, maybe even mid to late morning, early afternoon type of play. But for right now, just given the overall activity, I'll definitely be interested in just putting this on the watch list so far, the STSS. All right, little apples to oranges here because STSS relatively cheap, very liquid order book. AXSM. Uh, Relatively expensive in comparison. Paper thin order book. That's the thing. This thing just has a really big spread, really thin volume on the order book. This makes it like nearly untradeable right now. Hopefully, this order book will fill in when the market opens. This is not a level 1 or level 2 or even level 3 type of stock. So we covered that yesterday in class in the phase 1 stock course. But hey, right now it's very active. I don't know what news is out on it. I think it's a therapeutics company, so perhaps it's something to do with one of their drugs, maybe, phase 1, 2, or 3, completion or FDA approval. I actually got my Benzinga Pro here. Let me just check. I didn't think I had it up. All right, what do we got here? What is this? Axum Therapeutics. Trading higher after the company announced it received and agreed to post-marketing requirements / commitments proposed by the FDA with respect to the NDA for its, drug, whatever. I don't know what their drug is treating, perhaps, but looks like they ended up getting some recognition from the FDA. Hey, nice little pop up. Pulled back quite a bit. It actually is easy to borrow, so that in hindsight, could have been an opportunity really early in pre-market. But again, the order book is just so thin, so it's like that's a pure gamble, more or less, right? Ended up dropping off though, and remains very active. So it's hard to not put this at least on the main list so far, the AXSM. All right, we got Patrick's PMCB. There we go. Nice pop after 9 o'clock. We'll jump back to Benzinga Pro for this at least. I'm not going to do that for every trade, but for this one, definitely it just goes right away on our watch list, PMCB. Just break out Benzinga. We'll go one last time here. How about that? I'm your newsman for this morning. Got Traders Dyslexia as your newsman. Let's see. PMCB. All right. PMCB trading higher after the company announces results for its pancreatic cancer clinical trial product candidate to satisfy FDA requirements. All right, this might be the theme for today, perhaps, but nonetheless, another big pop here for this cheapy PMCB. We'll take a look on the daily chart. I don't think this is a new IPO. I'd be stunned. Yeah, we've traded in the past. I don't know what the hell happened here that led to that big drop off. Perhaps a reverse stock split over time. Maybe it's had one over the last couple of years, but maybe a couple. I don't know if this was really a $250 stock back in 17, but hey, with news out, if it is heavily shorted, if there has been a bunch of reverse stock splits in the past, we've seen these types of plays happen, and really recently too, with like stocks like INDO, ENSV, the 9 trade, all of those energy oil stocks. But yeah, this one definitely looking great. Great call from Pat. Ricardo in the chat board and Cyber Group. If you want to join us inside our live trading room, folks, on YouTube or Facebook Live, you got to join Norman and Ricardo and Patrick and Bill inside our live trading room to catch our chat here. Ricardo calling out the CRTX trade. Let me jump to that briefly. That one, or is it CRXT, Ricardo? I see that on the gainers list. We both might have Traders Dyslexia, but CRXT, nice pop right now. Nonetheless, this actually looks pretty good. I was going to get to this as I was going down the gainer side. I was just catching the chat board from a corner of my eye, but looks good. Hey, even as a pre-market trade, I'm happy I jumped to this actually right now. So perhaps this could provide us a little bit more of a run up prior to the open. All right, we keep it going. We keep it moving. We start back on the, we go back to the stock we started on here, the NAVB. See, now at this point, we have 4 much better stocks, so far compared to this. This is more of a level 1 stock, and we have a couple others that are relatively slow, more like 1 to 2. This is like watching wet paint dry. So, in the grand scheme of things, between this and AYTU, both of which are not only inexpensive, that's not the downside, that's the upside. It's the fact that both are just really slow and have a ton of liquidity on the book for it to cut through and break over. We've seen AYTU be a pop and drop type of stock for years now. Literally look at the weekly chart. I didn't even intend to keep the weekly chart up, but it just goes to show the stock's been split over years of time. And aside from back in early 2020 when it popped, look what happened even after. But from that point, it provided really a minimal opportunity. So NAVB, AYTU, honestly, I'm going to put them on the side list right now. Really not too thrilled with them just yet. If they end up popping after the open, I'll be thrilled to trade them. I'll be thrilled to call them out. Really, I'll cut it straight with you folks. Like, I would love to, but right now, I don't know. The direction is down for both of these. The STSS is a more compelling trade, in my opinion. And then that one's also dropping. All right, we keep it going. CRXT from Ricardo. This one's going up, right? So, this one looks a hell of a lot better. Cold's an ETF, I believe. So I know this one was really active in pre-market hours. It's moving on up pretty nicely here. So we don't really focus on the ETFs as much, right? You can't really use level 3 with much success on an ETF. That's just being, again, truthful about it. Like, if you want to go against that, you could try it, but not going to have much success. I'm telling you. It's to say, though, that if you have your own strategies on successfully trading ETFs, whether it be moving averages, in different indicators, just basic charting, perhaps that could work. You know what? This one is very active this morning, right? So I'll put it on the watch list for any of our folks that specifically do well either on this one or other ETFs using other strategies aside from level three. We just talked about that in class as well, folks, just in terms of, scanning the market, tradable, not tradable. Can't apply really level three on this trade with much success. All right, we got Plug here. Plug Power, certainly a stock you can. This is one that we've had really good success with over the years, like really since I've been employed. Since back in like 2014, we've been trading the stock. So, this one is more of a no-brainer for us to at least put on our watch list. I'm not going to jump back to Benzinga Pro just to make use of good time, but this one, although it's dropping back down, still very active, and hopefully we could see this make a higher low over time and build, another run back up higher after the open. Norman calling out the ATER trade. That one I called out in pre-market. That was one of the four I put on the pre-market watch list to begin. That was more on the loser side actually as well. So I want to take a look at that before we finish up. So that could be a nice pre-market trade coming up here too, as Norman's calling it out. Let me just jump over to the loser side here next, and then we'll see what else is out there. All right, so this is how you get traders dyslexia. Really quick, folks. I mean, if you think we joke about this and it's like a little haha, it is, but it's really true. Like the more you do this, you get this like traders dyslexia. You mix stocks up, different letters, different numbers. On the gainers list, up 32.9%. You got the STSS, right? On the losers list, down 28.6%. You got the SST. What the hell? I mean, this is how you end up tripping yourself up here. SST, STSS. Maybe that one's not as hard to trip up. I don't know. You be the judge of that. But then we got SAVA here. A couple of S's, SAVA. This one's dropping off quite a bit. Wow. I mean, see how the mighty have fallen. I mean, the stock ran up back from the end of 20 from 5 upwards to 140 plus. And then, back in mid 21 began that peak and drop off from there, and now it's back down to sub 20. So hey, right now SAVA, if you can get the shares to short this, looks pretty interesting. It's hard to borrow on trade stations, so that's where I say if you can get the shares to short it, then give it a good shot. Quick water break there. ENSV, bunch of stuff otherwise that is hard to borrow on top of the SAVA. I don't want to put a lot of hard to borrow stocks on our list. SAVA is really the only one I feel like you can potentially get shares of. I feel like all the others really wouldn't be worth the opportunity. Perhaps they can make pops and continue their moves up from yesterday, like all the oil stocks like ENSV, INDO, etc. But I'm not banking on it just yet. I'm not going to put my weight into that, right before the market opens up. I like that STSS a lot more. Patrick's PMCB. Well, check out Norman's ATER. He just got out with 24-cent profit. Geez, what the hell happened there? And John got about 40 or so cents on his catch. There we go, folks. So let me explain why I put this on the pre-market list to begin. Because normally, you look at a stock that's down however many percent, it wasn't as compelling early on in pre-market looking at just the flat trend. But if you look basically at the 5-minute chart and where it, was compared to yesterday, it was bouncing back up early and it was flat afterwards. But my thought was, and I'm happy it worked out at least this way. It doesn't always, but my thought was, what happens if this continues? What happens if history could repeat itself, right? So it looks like in this scenario, it did. It ended up just making that pop. There could be a lot more left to this. We ended up doing really well with ATER back last year. I believe this is also Bitcoin mining affiliated, if I'm not mistaken. ATER. Could be wrong on that, but I think I'm right. But if that's the case, then geez, then what about all the others that traded alongside with it or popped with it back, in 21 then, ANY it was, and then, BBIG was another one. ANY is doing nothing really, and ATER not really doing a whole lot yet either, but you might want to keep them on your side list. So ATER looking great. Definitely going to put on our main watch list near the top. Now, if we jump back to our side list, folks, just before we finish up, it's already 9:20 Eastern. Want to make sure all of our students have enough time to prep and get ready prior to the open. Twitter looks really good as a short right now. I mean, this thing just slammed below support off of 47.80. So long as it could remain under that price, and really, really from here, and when the market opens up more than anything, if this continues to drop off, then I'll say it's going to be a great short. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, we ended up seeing this make a slingshot after it ended up breaking down at first. So just be wary of that. History may repeat itself, and this may end up, making a drop off and then the sling after the open. So, that's what I'll be watching on this trade. So for Twitter, going back to this, it's hard to not put this at least on the main watch list right now. And then also the Queso trade, jumping back to that. See, the issue on this is that it's dropping down leading into the open. So that leads me to think it's going to continue to drop more. It was really active yesterday, right? So there's a chance, of course, it can continue. But for right now, I'm going to hold off. Get the NAVB trade. Garbage. Not really doing anything just yet. And then the AYTU all the way back down to $1. Pop up to 130, all the way back down round trip. All right, just checking the YouTube chat right now, RJF. My apologies there, just seeing your chat right now. So it looks like he had called that out at 9:14, also alongside Norman inside Cyber Group. So there we go. Nice catch. All right, folks, if you wanted to join us inside our live trading room for the Traders Talk workshop, that's coming up at 11 o'clock Eastern time this morning. Do yourself a favor, go right down to the link on the banner below. If you're on YouTube or Facebook Live, I just changed the banner right there. So if you wanted to join us actually inside our live trading room, go right to www.cybertradinguniversity.com/trial just to join. And then from that point, I look forward to catching all of you folks there, alongside Norman, alongside Leda, Grant, Michael, alongside all of our students inside the live trading room coming up later on this morning. Actually, for all of you folks, at least, I'll be back on the mic coming up in just about 8 or 9 minutes. Got to refill up on water. Went pretty good throughout the morning here, but I know my voice. It's going to chop up heading into the 2:30 meeting. So if you don't join us inside our live trading room, if you want to catch us on YouTube or Facebook Live later on this afternoon, I'll be back on at 2:30, likely with a pretty scratchy voice. I'll talk to you folks soon. Take care.
Become a Cyber Group member today. Just click the link below and receive all these amazing products and a world of knowledge for just $9. Do it today.